Hello, Catherine.
We're going to start off with Google, a company which we're used to seeing having a dramatic success, but it's had some quite disappointing results.
Yeah, well, I mean, further proving that the more successful you get, the more difficult it is to please people. Google's published its results for the first 3 months of this year. Pretty stellar results by all accounts, but still disappointing investors. These are the key figures. So revenue at the company up by nearly a fifth, profits up by 3%, but then there's the cost per click. This is the measure of how much money Google makes when people click on their advertisements. It's their main measure of earnings, and that actually fell by 9% over the period. That's the fact that's rattled investors. They're worried about whether or not Google will be able to continue to make money as more people start using their ads through mobile, because that's something that earns them that little bit less. It's a really key earning measure for the company, and that led to shares in after-hours trading, because these results were published after the closing bell on Wall Street. Those shares in after-hours trading fell by some 3%. Wiping billions off the value of the company.
Absolutely. Well, that news from Google not helping the technology sector in general either.
No, it's been a rough time, in fact, on tech stocks for the past couple of weeks. We've seen falls on all of the major indices over this fear of a tech bubble. Let's just compare. That's the figure for Google, down 3.1%. Facebook also down. Netflix, another company that's been hard hit recently. This is the after-hours trading figures for yesterday, which is a pity, because when you look at what was happening during the opening trading hours on Wall Street yesterday, things were actually looking quite positive. Nasdaq, which is where most of these tech stocks are listed, had been up by over 1%. We had seen some kind of claw back and those recent losses in the technology sector, but unfortunately things from Google may set the trend in the opposite direction now. It's having an effect certainly in trading in Asia today. The Nikkei in Tokyo down as a result, led by those telecoms technology sectors, again keeping that sector in negative territory after those results from Google. Slightly smaller gains, as you can see, across the rest of the Asian markets.
OK, well, we're going to stay in Asia, and we're going to stick with technology as well, with news of China's rival to Twitter.
Yes, Weibo has priced its shares for its stock market debut at the lower end of expectations, perhaps in response to those recent jitters in the industry. In fact, the microblogging service is being spun out of the Chinese internet firm Sina. In its initial public offering in New York, it sold 16.8 million shares at $17 each, which was the low end of expectations. The sale values Weibo at $3.8 billion, much lower than the company had originally hoped.
OK, here in France next, the Prime Minister has given some details of how the government is planning to make some really dramatic spending cuts.
Yes, now we've known for some time the government needs to cut 50 billion euros off how much it spends by 2017. We had some idea of which budgets would be affected, but Manuel Valls gave us a little bit more detail on Thursday. 21 billion of that will come from pensions, social care and health care. Social welfare payments, most social welfare payments will be frozen now until to October 2015. Public sector salaries also going to be frozen for the coming years. This, as the government says, that it will keep to the EU mandated target of bringing the budget deficit down to 3% by next year.
We have to restore the fabric of our economy and regain the ability to better compete, develop the country's economic activity and hire workers again. That's not to say that we will call into question our social model, our social rules or the minimum wage.
Let's turn now to the Indian elections. Economy there is always a key issue in these votes, although unemployment levels officially at less than 4% are the envy of most developed countries. There are structural problems in the Indian economy the government's opponents say have been neglected for more than a decade. Carl Brown has the details.
26-year-old Moj Khan lives in the village of Gasara, just 2 hours south of Delhi. One of a family of 12 living in one hut. Despite having a postgraduate degree, he's had to take low-paying farm jobs to help look after the family.
I have family expenses to meet, so I have to do something for work. Some people are working on the farm, some are working as daily wage labourers. These are the only employment options here, whether you're educated or illiterate.
Though India's official unemployment rate stands at just under 4%, much of that work is informal, and tens of millions of Indians are underemployed or inactive. The Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, is leading in the polls. It calls for increased investment and improved job prospects for skilled Indians. The ruling Congress Party says its critics' pro-business platform won't help the estimated 400 million Indians living in poverty.
Ours is a different way of thinking to the opposition. We're saying that certainly there should be development, definitely there should be growth, but the fruits of the growth should go to the poor, the economically weaker and the slum dwellers.
India's per capita income is estimated to have almost tripled between 2004 and 2012. But those gains have been unevenly distributed. And much of that growth, according to a report by the International Labour Organization, has created comparatively little employment in the formal economy.
And that wraps up business news. Thanks very much, Stephen Carroll. We're going to move on now to web news.